Next up, we've got Dekai, AI professor, web translation AI pioneer, and Google AI Ethics Council member. Dekai, over to you.
Are sick and contagious. Masks are unnecessary. Don't wear masks unless you're medical staff. You need N95 masks to protect yourself. Sip a hot drink every 15 minutes to kill the virus. The coronavirus will remain an Asian problem. We needn't worry. The virus is an escaped Chinese bioweapon. No, it's an escaped American bioweapon. It's the Chinese virus. Chinese eat bats. Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation are running rampant. Love in the time of coronavirus is scarce, replaced by irrationality, fear, and hatred. The pandemic has been shadowed and increasingly overshadowed by a panicdemic and an infodemic. The AI algorithms that are powering advertising-based news and social media and search continue to generate enormous profits. They're profiting by exploiting us humans' built-in unconscious biases, our cognitive biases. These are biases that evolution hardwired into us. The overconfidence effect, the pseudo-certainty effect, ambiguity effect, Dunning-Kruger effect, bias blind spot. Advertising profit is maximized when AIs prey upon our unconscious. Our civilization, our planetary group of humans, have been joined by AIs who are exponentially amplifying our unconscious groupthink bias. The AIs are encouraging disastrous government responses, especially in democracies. And the AIs are amplifying disastrous mass behavior, false senses of security, panic buying, ineffective preventative measures. The AIs are driving disastrous polarization, both unintentionally as well as via political abuse, amplifying conspiracy theories and racism. The AIs are machine learning the same human unconscious biases that are our Achilles heel, all in the name of profit. We're building AIs to track and fight this, and you can help us to map the misinformation flows, the unconscious cognitive biases they're exploiting, because otherwise, governments make disastrous mistakes, like believing the coronavirus would remain an Asian problem, so the West need not worry too much. You know, social media amplified our representativeness heuristic to make wrong predictions from experience of similar events like SARS, MERS, or Ebola, without realizing we were overestimating its ability to predict accurately. Social media fed our present bias, focusing us on immediate payoffs instead of thinking about future trade-offs a couple of months in the future. And without doing this, AIs drive polarization and hatred with memes like Chinese eat bats causing COVID. Chinese don't eat bats. Some wild game likely transmitted the bat virus. And oh, by the way, wild game is widely eaten in most of the world. But profit-seeking AIs learn to exploit our confirmation bias combined with affinity bias, which biases us towards people like ourselves, and selective perception, where our expectations affect perception. Social media drives polarization and hatred by spreading the Chinese virus meme. AI is preying on our empathy gap. We don't call H1N1 swine flu the American virus, even though the CDC says that's where it started. The AI kicks in our defensive attribution bias to blame someone else as the outcome becomes more and more severe. AI is amplifying framing bias, which misleads us to conclusions based on how a situation or issue is narrowly or metaphorically described. It's leaning in on the reiteration effect, making us believe things via repeated exposure so that familiarity overpowers rationality. Politicians abuse information weaponization to deflect blame. As reported in Nature Medicine, it's not an escaped bioweapon, but politicians can abuse AI to amplify hostile attribution bias, making us unconsciously interpret others' behaviors as having hostile intent. They get AI to feed our belief bias so that we'll rationalize their conspiracy theories. Thanks to our continued influence effect, we'll believe previously learned misinformation even after corrections. So that misinformation still influences our inferences. And even worse, AI makes huge profits off of the backfire effect, feeding our unconscious desire when confronted with counter evidence to just double down and strengthen our incorrect beliefs even more. AI propagated misinformation hurts mass behavior. Many of you have read you should sip a hot drink every 15 minutes to wash the virus down and let the stomach acids kill it. You know, sure, staying hydrated is always good, but that does not kill the virus. Colbert called this truthiness. It's the illusory truth effect that makes us believe falsehoods that are easier to process. The same effect is propagating disastrous misinformation. that masks are mainly for protecting yourself. But guess what? No, everyone should wear masks to stop their own droplets from coughing, sneezing, talking, from infecting others. Masks are mainly to protect your fellow community. So why are governments still saying masks are unnecessary to avoid using up masks instead of encouraging universal mask wearing? What they're doing is they're feeding our reactance, which makes us resist constraints on our freedom of choice. The fact that successful universal mask wearing strategies were all in Asia, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, feeds our reactive devaluation, where we devalue proposals only because they originated with a perceived adversary. It feeds our not invented here bias because this approach was developed outside our group. We cannot afford to keep letting profit-seeking AIs drive means that cause disastrous mass behavior. Mask wearers are not sick and contagious. No, mask wearers are selfish and community conscious. All of us need to pitch in to stop AIs from amplifying our unconscious stereotyping and attribution errors. Please help us to teach our bias-fighting AI. Go to dek.ai/unbias. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was brilliant, Dakai. Thank you so much for that. Talk about having great visuals with the masks. I mean, what a cultural thing, right? To wear a mask. I remember when being in Japan, people would just wear a mask as soon as they started to cough. And in England, if you wear a mask, you know, people will say, well, are you contagious? Even though you're protecting, you know, them from yourself.